Right, guys, welcome back. This is the Above Average FPL podcast. My name is Adam, and I'm joined, as always, by my mate Baker. Baker, how are you doing this evening?
Very well, mate. Very, very well.
Are you actually
Yeah,
relaxed?
really relaxed. It's lovely.
Oh, yeah? I'm not.
You're not. I
Well,
mean,
no,
you've
I've
had
had
a
a tough,
stressful week.
stressful
Yeah.
week of work, so it's kind of just completely displaced the FPL, lack of FPL in my life. So yeah, it's not been not been the best week. Lots of traveling, lots of late days, but just another couple more weeks of that to go, hopefully, and then it will calm down a little bit. But we'll see, we'll see. But yeah, no, from an FPL point of view, I guess it was nice to sit down um, yesterday and just watch the England game and not really care, um, and just yeah, quite nice for Harry to get on the score sheet, penalty merchant.
Penalty merchant, mate. I feel like there's going to be a lot of drama this week. Don't you? Like, we've got quite a few that are suddenly not there for the second game of their internationals and stuff and coming back, and a few that we're not sure if they're injured or not. I think there's going to be loads of drama this week.
Yeah, I think we're kind of reading between the lines on a few of them, aren't we? I think if we're looking at
Yeah.
like the Trent one, the Robbo one, for example, those two feel very much protection based rather than serious. I don't think there's anything too serious that's come out of anything any of the games so far. So we know what we know, and we just have to wait until players are back, and if we get anything from press conferences prior to the deadline.
Got waiting. You got it's quite, which makes it nicer in a way for me. So I'm like been all week thinking, don't think about what you're going to do. Don't do it. You know, it just takes some content in. Been some really good content over the last week for burning questions. Praz and Andy were just on it. That was such a good pod. If anyone's not listened to it, there's loads in that about plans for you to do and where to think about 33, 36 and that stuff. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, I mean that hour and a half flew by. I just couldn't believe how quickly it had gone, and just constantly taking in information. And Prass in particular. I mean, I love Andy, but Prass in particular, he was on something.
Oh, as good a performance as you'll see from anyone this season. But
Yeah,
we'll do our best, shall we?
we'll give it a go. We'll give it a go. So, before we get started, just quick pod plug as always. So follow the Twitter accounts at Above Average FPL and at Baker FPL 343. Pod's available on Apple, Spotify, Google. It's also available on YouTube, where we will be presenting some stats and data and graphs. So for a podcast like this, where we're doing focus on strategy a little bit, there it's always good to try and get over to YouTube to give that a watch. When you're on YouTube, or even if you are just listening, make sure you subscribe. You'll get the latest episodes to your device, and we also put a tweet out to let you know that it's there. The podcast and channel is supported by a good friend of ours who is in the crypto space. His name is at CryptoBlockDan on Twitter. So go check him out if you have any questions regarding cryptocurrency, NFTs, and all that good stuff. Just give him a shout, drop him a DM, drop him a follow, and get involved.
Nice one.
Nice one. So, what are we doing today? I guess we're looking at. I mean, the title of the pod is kind of finishing strong, right? So, I guess what we're doing is we're looking ahead at the next 8 game weeks. Everyone's got different amount of chips in hand. Everyone's got different team setups at the moment. There's a lot of structure differences across everyone. So it can be quite confusing as to sort of where to go. And so we sort of thought of a few questions that being asked around the community, or maybe someone who is not on Twitter has come across the channel, maybe just asking these questions anyway. And we see these on quite a lot of the high profile podcasts and channels. So what gets asked essentially is the straight up, the guys that want an answer, the guys and girls that just want an answer. They want to know what to do. So when should I use my remaining chips? Who should I captain in the double game weeks? How many City, Liverpool, Chelsea assets should I have going forward? These are the questions that we see everywhere. Even when the conversation is not about that at all, you still get
yeah, still
these
ask that.
questions coming up. I had a lovely dinner. Rate my team.
Yeah.
It's great. So those questions do come up, but taking a slightly different approach, we're going to look at we're going to have a little bit on that line, i.e., sort of how much can we trust the doublers, because we've got a lot of double game weeks coming up, and if you are unsure as to where teams are likely to double, then go check out guys like Lego Mane on Twitter. Go check out Planet FPL. Also Ben Crellin as well. So a lot of people doing FPL Timbers as well. A lot of people doing a lot of good stuff with fixtures. So go and check those guys out. Other questions. I mean, are we going to see heavy rotation from teams with many competitions on the go? We're coming to the business end of the FA Cup, the Champions League, Europa League, Premier League, obviously, and so our team. Are we going to see rotation amongst some of those bigger teams that are still in those competitions? How have those big six fared in the final game weeks of the season historically? And that's from a club point of view as well as a player point of view, and also actually looking at there are some gems that have come out from previous seasons from players not in that big six, which is quite interesting to look at. So there are still going to be some diamonds in the rough down in the lower echelons of the league. So it'd be good to try and see if we can find those. And then just sort of which positions tend to benefit at the business end of the season. So, is it more likely to be defenders where teams are on the beach? Is it going to be attackers in the same respect? I guess. Is it going to be teams that have got stuff to play for, so they're playing full strength sides, and see how that kind of fits.
Cool. I mean, yeah, bit of a trip down memory lane for some of this as well. I did have a busy week at work, but not as busy as your week. But I thought I'd go and just do some digging and say, like, is there anything out there that will give us some ideas of what we might see in these last set of game weeks? So where are we starting?
Let's start with the big six and the doublers. So what we've got on the screen and what we'll be talking about is the last 4 seasons. And we're looking at the big six. So City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, and United. And also upcoming doublers with interest. So it's not all the doublers, just ones that are piquing a little bit of interest. So that'd be Leicester, Everton, and unfortunately Burnley as well. So
unfortunately Burnley.
Yeah. But well, we've all been there, right? Game week 27 was a disaster. Yeah. But yeah, looking at like minutes per XG conceded, game weeks 1 to 30, and then game weeks 31 to 38.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're looking at this on the screen, basically the keys of what your colours, you've got some greens, yellows, ambers, reds, basically. But a team that takes less than 60 minutes to get to 1 XG is a good team. They've got almost certainly, if you're going to get that within 60 minutes, you're almost certainly going to score. And there's a good chance you're going to have multiple goals. Once you start getting into that 60 to 75 bracket, you're probably still likely to score, but might not get that second goal. 75 to 90, you kind of won at best most games. And more than 90, well, once you start becoming more likely to not score than score, that's a problem. That's a problem. So that's in the scoring piece. And then in the sort of concede piece, it's just the vice versa. Is if you can go more than 90 minutes without conceding an XG, that means almost you're more likely to keep it clean than not. 75 to 90 is still very, very good. Once you start getting the 60, 75 mark, then probably they could be a fair amount of 2-1s and 1-1 type games. Less than 60. It's not happening.
You're under.
Yeah. You're gonna concede most games.
Yeah, and I think I think the data's telling us exactly. I mean, to some extent, it's telling us what we know, right? In that the good teams are very good, and I guess the doublers are good in here for context, particularly Everton and particularly Burnley. I guess I've said unfortunately, and now I'm focusing on them here as well. Proper
but it's a big conundrum for a lot of us, isn't it? Thinking about, can you trust free hit? So Man United, for example, in the bottom of this, not many of us are considering Man United unless we're thinking about that
33 free hit.
Yeah, you want them for 33. So can you even trust to go there? Because potentially you could go off a Kane to a Ronaldo, or you can get a Sancho in instead of a Havertz or Foden type, player. There's options there, and I think it's just really good to then have a few contrasting teams of the ones that are not quite up there, as you said, and actually how far off are they, both from an attacking point and a defensive point. So
Well, I think the thing that stands out to me here, right, looking at City and Liverpool, right? So City and Liverpool both currently game weeks 1 to 30 this season in particular have created an expected goal in less than 37 and a half minutes. Now,
That's
if
absurd, isn't
it's
it?
mad, and if you look on the flip side, if you look at Burnley at 92 and a half, now that says to me that Burnley are unlikely to score more than one goal in two games.
Yeah,
Whereas, Liverpool and City are likely to score more than two goals in one game.
yeah,
So immediately you're saying so it's this question about whether we really need to move to the doublers if the doublers are actually bad. And I chucked out a cheeky tweet in the week, and just a poll just to really get sort of gauge on how people are psychologically thinking about it. And it was a case of like, would you take Veghorst if you assume that Burnley have games against mid-table teams and Liverpool have games against mid-table teams, or a game? Would you take Veghorst or would you take Salah if Burnley had a triple game week? Which I was throwing that out as quite a. I was trying to get Veghorst up there as much as I could. um,
baiting.
I was in some ways, and yeah, interesting. I mean, we had like 1,800 votes on it, which was pretty good. And yeah, Salah came out on top, 57 to 43, so it was pretty close. And I mean, I think you do have to obviously consider that Veghorst is going to get appearance points on top of that as well. So, and the XG for City and Liverpool is unlikely to, sort of for Liverpool is unlikely to all be Salah, although probably be leaning heavily towards him. I would say that the XG is quite likely to lean heavily towards Weghorst for Burnley. So I mean, it's just an interesting way of thinking about it. But I mean, I think what is clear is that for me anyway, City Liverpool, um, certainly in a double is obviously more
Yeah. And that
more
leads you
fruitful
a
than the
little bit
others.
more to that Forza for those thinking about it, the 36 double. Like, you don't want to go in without six of those players really because of how good they are. There is questions of do you get them all to play, but that's something we'll get to a bit later. I think the thing that immediately stands out to me so this is a chart where it's like the left doesn't equal the right. So the left is 30 game sample, and the right is how do you do at the end piece. But nobody's ever done a sub 40 minutes per XG in the previous three seasons. And we've got two teams in it. Then you look at Arsenal, Tottenham, Man United. They've all produced their best attacking numbers of the last four seasons. That's unbelievable. Is Arsenal, Tottenham, United are all suddenly up there with Chelsea in XG terms. So it's like there's two tiers there, but Arsenal, Tottenham, and United are in line with Chelsea in attacking numbers. Now, the interesting part from that one is, like, Saka will play. He'll play.
Yep.
And he's cheaper than Havertz and Mount.
Just
Like, the attacking numbers are there for the man. Is Son. People think, well, maybe I'll push up to say a Havertz, but they might not have Son in their team. Like, those numbers that are in line. They're in a really good space in that. Even your Sancho, that's going to play all the time, he could be a really good asset in terms of their attack. They're doing good things. And then actually, even when you look at Leicester, they're not that far behind Leicester, and they're really consistent. If you look at them for the last four seasons, they kind of operate between 53 minutes per XG and just under 70. So they've got that window, and actually their attack hasn't really dropped off this season.
Given that Vardy has been out for periods of time as well. I mean, he obviously started well up to like game week 10, 11 before he got injured, and then considering that they've had injuries to Madison as well in there, and Barnes, so they've had injuries to all of those guys this season as well, and that hasn't really dropped off. I think what's interesting now with Vardy coming back into play and looking at the data here, I mean, not to say that historical data predicts future outcomes or anything like that, but over the last 4 seasons, they've been stronger in the last 10 games than they have over the average of the first 30.
Yeah.
So, there is a thought that really they're actually focusing on the Europa League, and I think that the Europa Conference, and I think that might play into some thinking here, and maybe it won't be such as strong a performance from an XG point of view.
Chelsea, interesting to note, though, are the only ones that each of the last 3 seasons have done better in the final stretch than they did in the games 1 to 30. So, if you want to frame your agenda that way, is they do tend to manage their XG well, considering that they've very often been involved in competitions. So, yeah, they can tend to be a very, very good team. When you look at the rest of them, sometimes you do get a fair drop off. Liverpool in 1920 massively dropped off, but then loads of teams dropped off. Is Tottenham massively dropped off, Arsenal massively did. Yeah, those can happen, whereas City just ran away from it, absolutely steamrolled those last.
Yeah, and I remember them. They
weeks.
did walk away with the league quite considerably.
Yeah. It can happen though. You can't. So it's one. I think there's part of me that says maybe you can wait 2 more weeks on some of this and watch what plays out.
No. Hold on. So no. The 1920 season was the season that Liverpool had won it by January, wasn't it? Wasn't it that season?
Yeah, I think so.
Actually, no, because that was the COVID season where they literally came back and
yes,
they needed a couple of games to win it. No, that's right. They smashed it so early. That they were on the beach.
They were literally on the beach after that. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And then from a conceding point of view.
Yeah. Well, just we've mentioned it there on that top bit on the scoring bits, but Everton just have been a bad team for a long time. Like, actually, I can't even really blame Lampard or Rafa. They've actually, attacking wise, been a bad team for a long time. And Burnley have pulled it out of the bag at the end before. They did do it last season. There is a significant step up last season to go from a 90-minute rubbish to a 60-minute per XG. They can do it. It's not unheard of. They have also gone the other way back in 2018-19 where they got worse. But when they've needed to, they have managed to do some good stuff. I mean, when you move on to the defence, again, City, well, just in general, actually, just that top 3 defence is just elite. Is City's XG is just absurd. To go 142, basically a game and a half before they can see it next year.
Yeah.
It's just absurd.
It's just nuts. So you just expect them to clean, and that's a heavy reason without fully being 100% aware of how good this data was over the last 30 game weeks. It's part of the reason why I didn't move off of Laporte and Cancelo as a double, because you just watch them turn up and you just expect them not to concede. And if they concede, it's actually it's a bit strange. It feels a bit odd. They've conceded 18 goals in 29 games. So
yeah, and Chelsea, like we said, is Chelsea are very much with the other 3 in attack, but in defence, they're an elite defence. 94 minutes per XG conceded. We know, and that's carrying on from the good work last season. Tuchel knows what he's doing there. I mean, they play 5 defenders and 2 men in front of them. It gives you a good chance. They are a very, very, very good defence. Arsenal, Tottenham, good. They're okay, but I think we'll go looking at it a bit when you break it down a bit further. They're a bit better than their season history, for this one suggests. They both came out the blocks in not a good way. If you think about like Arsenal, for example, they had the Xhaka sending off against City, massive, and then the Chelsea game where they got battered. Tottenham with Nuno ball and all of that stuff. It was Conte came in game week 10. So that has hindered theirs a fair amount. Man United's defence never been worse.
Yeah, bad, and we know that. But it's not just it was always a case of, you know, that they give up chances to teams, and that was almost the narrative prior to, you know, seeing this data written down like this. I mean, the narrative has been that they just always provide a chance. Teams are going to get a chance,
Yeah,
and a good chance, which, you know, they're conceding an XG every 59.5 minutes for those that are listening, and it's just not good. And
no,
you know, that's on basically on par with Everton and Burnley, 58.8 and 50. Was that 56.8?
6.8. Yep.
Yeah, and Leicester
Yes.
are even worse.
Unless even worse, 46.9. Like, they are as bad as it gets defensively. So they haven't dropped off a lot in the attack, but the defense just puts them up against it so much. It's just, that's why we've said so many times, Leicester game start 1-1. Well, you see this, you can see it. I think that the key is an immediate place, if you were like stopping the podcast now, is the good teams have never been more good. And the bad have probably never been more bad.
Yeah.
And that probably just helps you when you're thinking about this. Who do I want to get in my team for this final run? There's a lot of you that says you need a really good reason to go away from the good teams.
So, because even like, you know, would you pick like an Edison? Would you pick like, I mean, you would, but pick Edison in a single versus Pope in a double? Like, you'd expect Pope to concede 3.5 goals across the two games.
Yeah, I think keeper is a slightly different situation on this one. So I think when you're looking at this as an immediate, the thing that rings in my head is that playing 90 minutes or playing more than 60 minutes without a booking is half a goal. So everybody that has a double starts half a goal up, effectively.
Okay.
In an attacking sense. Keepers probably also do, because it's quite rare that you see a keeper not get 2 points, because either the teams have enough shots that they make, you know, that even if they lose 3-0, they'll probably get the one save point at least, and they'll still get the 2 points. So keepers, I feel like it's the same way.
Okay.
They get half a clean sheet almost. Defenders, not so much, unless they've got attacking outlet. So defenders with attacking outlet, fine. You know, you've got another bite of the cherry. You could get more. But when you're looking at, say, your Ben Mees, your Tarkowskis, or Maguire, even people like, you know, historically like Wan-Bissaka and those type of players, is they needed clean sheets, because otherwise they're just in a bad space. So would you, on a double right now, put in a Man United defender? No.
No.
I wouldn't. Would I put a Leicester, Everton, Burnley defender? No. Would I put a keeper? Yeah, maybe. Because they start half a clean sheet up. And therefore, if they get a clean sheet, then they really, really have won. So I still don't mind doubles in attack and in goal. I hate them for the bad teams in the defensive areas.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. We've spent a lot of time just on this first one. We could go a bit deeper.
Yeah, well, I think it leads us, though, doesn't it? Where we're going to go.
Yeah,
where
true.
we go through.
Okay.
So we went deeper.
We went deeper. So we went deeper into the last couple of seasons, and tried to break down that 1 to 30 into sort of 1 to 10 into 10 week portions. Essentially, I don't know how else to say that. 10-week segments, so that we can see really whether anything has changed dramatically.
And even just like, because it's technically 7 periods in a row, isn't it? I mean, you've got the 31 and 38 is a slightly shorter one, but it just helps with rounding of how you're looking to do this. Is so you can just see like an 8-period spot, and like City and Liverpool, just no chill, just nothing. Like, that's a new level to, because often when you see it, you think, oh yeah, but fixtures, there'll be a load of them that have done it. But over any 10-game period, Liverpool and City have had over 2 XG. We talk about it on the pod all the time. If you're a team that has over 2 XG, you are an elite attack. I mean, Liverpool's 3 this season. And if you just take the end of last season as well, so take it from the end of last season, 2.36, 2.4, 2.62, 2.41.
Yeah, just it's relentless.
It's utterly relentless. And maybe that is helped by the fact that you've got some additional attackers. So now you've got 5 as opposed to it was 3. Then it became the how do we fit the 4th one in? And now you've got a 5th one. But there's just no chill on those top 2 teams. And this starts to tell the story. So if you look at Tottenham, like 1.07 under Nuno,
Yeah, it was poor.
suddenly has become a 1.9 team.
Yeah, we were worse than Burnley in those first 10 game weeks.
We were worse than Burnley. Only for the first 10. Yeah, I mean,
for the first
they
10
actually
games,
got worse.
we were worse than Burnley. I mean, they somehow got worse. Yeah, and you can even see that in. I think Arsenal had quite a stark change from game week 3, right? So those first 3, they really didn't do anything at all, and then they picked up rather quickly beyond that, and have improved, and dropped off slightly, but they've compensated that in their defensive sort of prowess over the last 10, which has helped them maintain the number of wins that they have, and really sort of given them that kind of lock on that 4th spot at the moment, which is, I can't say good for them. I just can't say it, but but what's
they're a really good team now. They're a solid team.
So I hate saying it.
They're a solid team. They're a very similar team to Chelsea, really. When you look at what they're doing, is that they are looking to, when you combine their defensive work and their attacking work, they're looking to be a very solid team at the back that also likes to score 2 goals, and win a lot of games 2-0. Tottenham's is a bit different in that they look like they look like they could be more 3-1s than 2-0s, in the way they play. Rangnick's a little interesting at United. They are effectively, going into this final period, the 4th best attack.
Yeah.
At 1.82. So it does make you think to yourself, that home to Norwich game, there's a chance. You saw Son and Kane combine for 40 points with a captain and just own the other one. Ronaldo, Bruno, Sancho, if you owned all 3, that could easily be a 40-point game.
I'm very unlikely to free hit in 33, I think. I need to look at it.
But if anyone did,
it feels dangerous not.
Yeah.
Potentially. But there we go.
Yeah. And that's the even more fun bit about it to an extent, is that I don't think those percentages are going to be high owned. Do you? No. I'd be surprised if any of them get up there. Maybe Ronaldo, because they could just easily go from Kane to Ronaldo. But if Kane bangs against Newcastle and Ronaldo misses one of the next 2 games, nobody's going there.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think in the top 10K. So there's about 70% of people still have a free hit in hand. So it is a decision to make as to whether they think 33 or 36 may be the better option. But consider. I don't think we should be dismissing 33 as an option. For sure.
Yeah. I'm definitely trying to keep myself as open as I can be to these ones, rather than go, as part of,
I mean, it's not look, as well, just before you say that, I mean, it's not like United have bad fixtures coming up either. Because if you look at the next 2 games, they're facing a Leicester side that are conceding 2 XG, and they're facing an Everton side that's conceding 1.5 XG a game. So actually, even if you're not on a free hit, you could potentially start making those moves and taking some free transfers, getting these players in. And then off the back of that, they have got Arsenal out the back of in 34, but they have got Brentford in 35 at home. So it's not like it's It's not like it's the worst. So you could potentially go into if you manage to get to like 2 United players in 33, you could go into 34 with one, have one in 35, move them out in 36, or if you want a free hit in 36, then fine, and then you can take them out in 37.
But attacking wise, that's the best set of numbers they've had over the last 2 seasons.
I just feel, yeah,
it's
the
tough, isn't
question,
it?
it's tough because the question really is, well, from my perspective anyway, the question would be, do you want Kane or do you want Ronaldo? Because you can't have both. You just can't have both.
Unless you're free hit, and then you can still just about do it.
You can just about do it. Yes.
You've probably got a straight choice on free hit of Kane or Salah.
Yeah.
On 33. And that's the thing.
I love the psychology about going against Salah in 33 when he's got United after last time.
Exactly.
It's mental.
Exactly. But and that's the thing about 33 is, seriously, look at what you're going up against. So you are going up against a City and Liverpool team who have basically got 5 goals between them probably in that game week, and are not going to concede.
It doesn't. They're not going to concede. It doesn't matter who they play, right? That's the thing as well. It doesn't matter who they play, and then if you want to factor in fixtures, if you want to weight fixtures, anything like that. City have got Brighton, who are what? They're what? 12th, 13th. What are they? 13th.
It's a tough.
They're 11 points clear of the relegation zone. They got nothing to play for.
And and Tottenham have also got Brighton. First game of the game week. I'm going to go to that. That'd be a good game. So that early game is Tottenham Brighton, and how do you take Kane out? And then you've got Man United Norwich straight after at 3:00.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I think we're going off a little bit here.
We are going off a little bit, but we got to try and think of it. But what we're trying to do is provide the fact. The fact is,
United
you can kind of trust their attack a little bit.
It's 10 games. There's 10 games averaging. So in 10 games, they've had 18.8 xG.
Yeah,
it's good.
It's all right.
It's all right. Yeah,
it's not bad. Leicester's is a bit.
It's dropped a little bit.
But if we're going to say that, we shouldn't ignore the elephant in the room here for those that are looking at it. We've got one of the big threes with a red on XG for game week 21 to 30.
Yeah. Which is
Chelsea's XG 1.14. And you said it to me before we start. We looked at you. If you haven't played any games, they have played games. Like, they haven't got 6 games in hand. They've been playing. Like, everyone thinks just because they had the Club World Cup, they've not been playing. They've been playing. Like, that's no small sample.
They had a nice double in there as well.
And they had the best double the world's ever seen in there. And their XG is 1.14 for 21 to 30.
Yeah, that's bad. And there's a lot of people looking at players like Havertz, right? As you say, and as an option. I think that's really tough to get behind.
I think it's really tough to get behind.
What is he, 9? 8.5? No, he's 8.5.
7.9 maybe.
Is he that cheap?
I've got in my head.
Is he quite cheap?
God, look at it. Feels
cheap now. Why? I mean,
Get it. 7.9.
Is he 7.9? Okay, well, fair enough. I mean, thinking about it, I remember at the start of the season we were looking at Chelsea mids and saying couldn't believe actually they were all below 8 million or something like that. But yeah.
But go look at their defence and go look at Man City and Liverpool defence at the bottom here. Like,
yeah, they're better defensively.
Just get yourself another City defender. Just get yourself Robertson. Like, what you doing? Just get the nailed on brilliant players. If you get to say Robbo versus Havertz for the rest of the season, who's getting the most points?
Yeah, Robbo. Easily.
All day
Easily
long.
Robbo.
Easily Robbo for me.
I mean,
Havertz is fun though, isn't it?
Well, not if Robbo is getting points.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. I mean, there's an element of this is the amount of goals that they'd expect to concede, right? The expected goals doesn't actually factor in how good the keeper is and how good and we've spoken about Alisson before, haven't we? His positioning and they may have 0.84 xG against them in the last 10 games. I mean, have they conceded 8.5 goals in the last 10 games?
We'll get to that. It's on the next slide.
Oh,
But
is it
let's
really?
just, yeah, it is. We'll get to that. It's on the
Amazing.
next. We'll go
Should
deeper.
we do now?
We'll go deeper. Just on that bottom one,
Yeah.
just around the defence, I know you don't like to cover Arsenal.
They're ridiculously good.
They're good. They are now because do you know why they're so good? Is that they are starting to grind games. They're low XGC, 0.83 for the last 21 to 30. That's less than Liverpool. It's in line with everyone else. They're becoming almost an elite defence. That's cost them a little bit off their XG, almost a bit, because they're just being that place where Partey and Xhaka sit there in front of the back four. You've got a real back six. They are strong. And if you think about, like, loads of people get Rudiger in their team, don't they, at 6.2? And
Just
you can
get
have Ben White.
at 4.5, 4.4, whatever he is.
Like, I like Ben White, thanks. It's they're a very, very good defence now.
Yeah, and just fixtures for context: Palace, Brighton, then a double with Southampton in there. Chelsea could be 0-0. Actually, that game could very much easily be 0-0. You could look at double clean there. United at home, tough with that strong United attack. West Ham, Leeds, Tottenham, Newcastle, Everton. I mean, they've got decent fixtures for the rest of the season. So
I think when you look at Tottenham, it looks like you need a bit of attack as in not just a defender that defends. Is because
I don't like having Hugo. Put it that way.
Yeah, it's like you think they're always probably likely to concede.
I might just burn -4 just to get that moving. To be honest.
And Leicester's is even worse when you consider how bad it's been since game week 11. I actually don't know how Rodgers has kept his job. I know they're in the conference, wherever it is, but how do you keep your job when you concede over 2 XG? Like, Everton and Burnley have not done things like that.
Yeah.
It's appalling. But if we go to the next one, and then it's like, because the thing is, we don't get points for XG, do we?
No, we get it for goals.
We get it for goals. We get it for assists, and we, when we're thinking about like bonus, you get certain, actions. You don't get it for the XG. That's kind of a little bit of big chance stuff, but not really. And so it was like, well, how does that XG work out? Because when I think of like Chelsea, for example, you think they're doing all right. How are they doing all right when the XG is so bad? And then if you look at their attacking stats, you start to see it. So despite the fact that they've had an XG of 1.14 for the last 10 games, 7 or 8 games, wherever it is they've played, they've actually got 1.75 goals a game. And they are, I think they're something like the 7th team in Europe for overperformance on XG and top from the Premier League. Like 7 goals above what they should have scored this season. They've got really good players. I know, so we say about Havertz, but
as you said, so to put in context into there, I mean, they did have Norwich and Burnley in there and scored 7 of those goals in 2 games.
Yeah.
Just to add that in there.
Yeah. Season, but in general, they've got good players, so that does help them. So it doesn't mean they're only going to score 1. They still manage to get themselves up, but there's still likely more to be a 2-0 job most of the time. And how do they do it? Is like they only have 4 shots on target per game. It's pretty rank, And then if you look at, say, Arsenal, for example, very similar in that sense, but Arsenal just work on volume. It was before, but you can manipulate some stats. So I saw someone earlier that week saying something about like minutes per chance and stuff like that. And Arsenal look really good on it. And I'm like, yeah. But they take 16 shots and only 4 on target. Like, it's just speculative efforts and equals no XG. Like, they just try and win by sheer volume of, I'll take lots of shots, I'll give it a go. They'll be low quality. There's not many teams that have less than 0.1 XG per shot taken, not in the big teams. That's quite rare. They do. You
Mm.
know, if you look at Liverpool's is something like 1.4, something like that, 1.5, despite the fact that their shot volumes are higher, you know, that's how much more elite Liverpool are as an attack to Arsenal, for example. Yeah, I mean, Liverpool's numbers are just absurd. Absurd. 8 shots on target per game. So if you're facing them as a keeper in FPL, like I say, if you lose 3-0, well, you're still going to get 5 saves. So you've got a good chance of getting 2 save points almost, even in a even
Yeah.
in a 2-0 loss, you know, and stuff like that is and they get their XG. So not only do they do 2.4 XG, but they get 2.5 out. You know, they overproduce on it. Just
That's an element. I think if you compare that to City, that's an element of how direct they are actually, and the quality of the chances that they're creating, um,
yeah,
and yeah, and the type of players that are taking the strikes. I mean, if you compare Mane and Salah to, I don't know, a Silver, those kind of players,
yeah.
City's is very
It's
much
a
more
very
cutesy
different.
cutesy.
You can kind of picture it if you think about watching them. So, like City's 17.6 shots for 6 on target, and you think, well, what do I think of if you think of shots from City? I think of Cancelo, De Bruyne banging them for 25 yards, Rodri having a go. Most of those miss the target, don't they? Actually, a lot of them go just wide because they always go for top corner. They're not just banging it; they're
Mm.
literally trying to put them in. So you end up with high numbers of shots off target, which is low XG accumulation. And if you ever see their timing charts, they sort of step, 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 step. And then there's the big ones, and those are those 6 shots on target, which you can think of. They're the Foden 4 yards out, the Gundogan, the Bernardo, you know, the
Yeah,
all of those little ones where they're intricate plays. Oh, there you go, big chance goal. You can kind of start to picture what does that XG mean from it. Tottenham we've talked about, but look, they are high quality finishers, and they are getting a high number of shots on target. If you think about Arsenal have 16 shots for 4 on target, Tottenham have 14 for 6.
yeah,
They don't need as many. When we did our bonus pod on Son and Kane, everything got in the box, didn't it?
yeah.
Everything got in the box. And so you see that they
That's
work
where their
high
shot maps
quality
were.
chances,
Yeah,
and then their XG is huge.
yeah,
And Man United are pretty similar in that game, but they've just not produced the goals off of it. And there's been a load of games like that, isn't it, where you've seen United and they've not scored, and you were like, "How's that happened?"
yeah.
The Watford game, or whatever it was,
The
where they,
Watford Ronaldo went round Foster and then passed it
yeah,
to nothing. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And then you look at those doublers, and you go, "Christ!"
yeah.
I mean, I looked at it in that 21 to 30 period, right? Kane's had 50 shots for 7.8 xg. 50 shots for 7.8 xg, right? So that's what 0.78 xg per game in that period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's more than Burnley on his own. Weghorst has had 13 shots to his 50. So we talked about like one game for 2. Like Weg
Yeah,
needs 4 games for one at the moment. 1.9 xg, exactly 4 games he needs to match Kane at the moment.
yeah,
Yeah, but cheap and he gets a double. So I'm not ruling out Weghorst, but
yeah. But you've got Jimenez, so it's easy.
there, yeah. And it's just, but it's
It's about that team
understand
structure
how
thing, isn't it?
limited it is.
Yeah,
Yeah. Understand limited. And then you go to the defense piece, and we've talked about the Allison effect. That's what you said there. Look
yeah.
at it. 0.
0.4
Yeah,
versus
0.4.
0.84.
0.4 conceded per game, 0.84 XG conceded. He does twice what the normal man should do, or teams do twice as worse as they should do. He's just phenomenal. And then City's.
Yeah, City's is just. I mean, City and Chelsea, in truth.
Yep.
But City they just don't concede many shots at all because of
Yep.
how much they suffocate teams and how much possession they dominate. It's just almost
Yeah.
impossible to concede that many shots when the game is being played at the other end of the pitch, like all the time. And then you know, looking down at Leicester. I mean,
It could be worse.
it could be worse. It could be worse. It could be worse.
It could be worse. I do think actually, even just that Spurs United one, 0.8 xg conceded to 1.2. I think sometimes we'd see that sort of thing and think that's about the same. Like it's not that much in it. It's 50% more. You can see when you actually see the shots, you can kind of get it. It's like, oh, they go from 9 shots to 13. They go from 5 to 8 on target. It's a big deal, moving that one. Spurs and United are a lot, they're below those top 4 in the
Yeah.
defensive options. The good thing about Tottenham is Reggie and Doc do get chances to score. Romero just runs off like a madman and tries to score type things. Whereas United, you're like, who's going to get me an attack and return from that defense? And you're like, I can't trust him in defense. I can't trust him to get an attack and return from a defender. I'm not going to bother.
No thanks.
Leicester, I just can't see a way. I can't see a way it's good.
No, it's just bad.
It's bad. And Burnley, they're not that bad. It's not that bad. 9 shots on target per game. That's what they concede. So if they don't concede 4 goals, then you get 2 save points.
Yeah.
And you get 3 points from Pope. So you'll get 6 points from Pope in a double, even without a clean. It's all right. Like,
it's not bad, is it?
It's not bad. It's not bad. Is
And they've got 3 of them coming up, so
yeah, in a single, it's not so good.
yeah, but
It's not so good.
their singles aren't that bad actually coming up. I
They're
mean,
not that bad.
you
All
get
the way up to
Norwich,
36.
Wolves,
Yeah.
Villa. Oh yeah, obviously because as soon as they play Tottenham, then they're back to this. But yeah, they're not that bad. And
They're
so
not
you
that
probably
bad,
could carry Pope through if you assume that the first game is basically the first 31 is basically a single game week with maybe a couple of extra points for save points.
If Ramsdale is out for a bit, or they're not, I can see people going down. I think it'll be all right. But for a hit, you're already starting -4 on it. You're like, it doesn't feel so good.
No,
So we've done quite a bit on teams, haven't we?
We have, yeah. We've got to rush through players and clubs and stuff.
Yeah.
Where do you
Well,
want
I
to go
think
next?
we can. Let's go. Well, as we've done the teams, shall we just have a look at what you looked at on rotation?
Yeah. So, so what I looked at basically was, oh, and I realise I haven't shifted around. There's going to be some awesome editing on the fly as we go into something a little bit later. But yeah, no, I was looking basically at the 2018-19 season, and the reason that was because it came up on the TV earlier, and I was just watching it. I was watching the closing stages of that season, just once seeing how it unfolded, and just got me thinking as to how Klopp and Pep managed their teams through that period. Liverpool had the Champions League, and in fact they both made a final, which is interesting because it means their seasons did stretch beyond the end of the Premier League season, which is good because it means that we could see all the way up to the end of the season what they were doing. Obviously, Klopp had a couple of weeks after the end of the season for the Champions League. Pep's FA Cup final was a bit sooner. But I just wanted to look and see how they managed their squads. And what was interesting was that Liverpool had 13 games across those final 8 Premier League games. And they had 5 Champions League games. They were obviously out the FA Cup at this point. I can't remember who they went out to, but they were out the FA Cup at this point. And for people looking on the screen, so I've got the players that he used. So very quickly for people listening, it's Alisson, Van Dijk, Mane, Trent, Robertson, Salah, Matip, Wijnaldum, Henderson, Firmino, Keita, Fabinho, and then a bunch of others down the bottom. And I've selected in green where they've played, and I've selected in orange where they've been marked as injured and therefore unavailable for selection. And what's interesting is that, and on the right hand side, the percentage is the amount of games that they played where they were available. So they are adjusted for guys like Keita. You can see where he's been available. He's played 6 out of the 7 games that he was available for that period. So I've highlighted in yellow basically 7 players for Klopp, Alisson, Van Dijk, Mane, Trent, Robertson, Salah, and Keita that all played all but one, if not all, of those games required remaining in that season, and it just shows that you know it was very important for Klopp to have a consistent backline primarily, very very much. Van Dijk, Trent, and Robertson were at the core of his backline. I don't think that's going to change. And then his front line, Mane and Salah in particular, and then having that man in the midfield, Keita, if not replaced by Henderson, pretty much.
He ran him into the ground, mate. Like you can see it, he did. Even like they played Cardiff. They played Cardiff and Huddersfield before playing Barcelona, and then they played Newcastle, Barcelona, Wolves. Like, who cares? I'm running into the ground. And Portsmouth, was it? No, Porto.
Porto.
Was it? So he went from the Porto game straight into Cardiff, went stuff that. I'm still playing full team. Stuff that Huddersfield, still playing full team.
Yeah.
Barca, like and I think we've all got that in our heads. He'll do that, and he will again. And I think the other thing I looked at this was you kind of forget these good teams actually that keep very cool for quite a number of years. 2018-19 sounds like a while ago.
You're gonna have to say that again, I think, mate, because it just the internet went a bit funny.
Oh, did it? But basically they're the same players, aren't they? Like 2018-19 sounds like quite a while ago, but Alisson, Robertson, Matip, Van Dijk, Trent will play.
Yeah.
Henderson, Fabinho's on there. He was sort of just coming into I think that was Fabinho and Keita's first season. So they sort of shared minutes, looks like, doesn't it, a bit?
Yeah.
Milner's still there. He'll probably pull him in when he needs to.
But what they have got this season is they've got more attacking options.
They have. And it's like, what do they do with them? But maybe they do slide some of those. I think Firmino is probably the one that doesn't play all the games, and it's just basic. But do I think Jota and Diaz just switch or keep them fresh? Probably
just runs them. See, that's the thing. I think even for the City, when we look at City as well, I think having there's going to be no international tournament this summer. There's going to be no extended season or anything like that this summer. It's going to be the first full summer off that the players have had. There's no World Cup. There's no Euros. There's no AFCON's gone. There's Copa America. I don't know. I don't know about Copa America when that can't be played in the summer. Copa America's played in the winter, isn't it? So
let's call it. They got summer off. But yeah. I think the back four, you just think, because the back four all offer attacking threat too. Like, they're all great. Having two of those feels fantastic. If one of Diaz or Jota puts their hand up and says, "I'm going to play," then maybe you go there. But it does look good having three of them, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, what also I found interesting when I was looking at it was that of all of the available starts, essentially 82% cumulatively was taken up by the first 11 players, by the top 11. So like almost all of them were. It really was, as you said, like he ran them into the
Two changes.
Yeah.
Mostly in midfield.
And he used 20 players across that period. And if we look at City, so we look at City now, played a game extra in that period. And actually Ederson was the only one to play every single game. They did have a few injuries across that period.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, it's a relatively similar story, except you can see that Pep managed his team a little bit differently. You see, they played the Fulham game, and then the Cardiff game, he basically just went champ man, full rep, change.
Just pull them out.
Just pull them out. So Walker, Gundo, David Silva, Sterling, Bernardo Silva. No, none of you are playing. He brought in at that time like Foden, Stones, Danilo, to come and replace him. So and he used 21 players across this period. He had an extra game.
Yeah,
it's generally the same, and in terms of it was 78% of the available starts were from the first 11 players, so it is relatively similar. But he did have quite a few injuries, and I think for those that are listening, so the guys that I've highlighted here, Edison didn't miss a game, Laporte missed one, basically just at the start. I actually should have
Yeah,
checked whether that was an injury. I didn't see that. Walker played every game but won the Cardiff game. Gundo played every game but Cardiff. Zinchenko played every game but Swansea in the FA Cup, although he was injured for a period. And then KDB basically played every game he was available. He was injured at the start of the run, and at the end, he only missed the Champions League game against Tottenham, the first leg. Quite strangely, I mean, Company must have had a reoccurrence of his
yeah, he
injury.
did, didn't he? He scored the magical goal, didn't he?
He scored the banger against Leicester.
Yeah, well, it was Otamendi, wasn't it? So he went. It just Otamendi decided just dump that, go back to Company with Laporte. So if you look at it, it basically was Otamendi plays, bin that off, bring Company in, and just keep running it.
But again, it's a really, really solid back line, right? And then his key man in De Bruyne, and I think again though he has got a lot of options this time round.
I think if you looked at it, you could replace Walker's name with Cancelo in terms of importance to the team. Yeah. That's my number one but Walker's probably in there as well. So it's probably both of those will play as many games as possible. Laporte will play as many games as possible. Gundo is probably more Bernardo now, despite Bernardo was there, but he was more of a utility man, wasn't he? He played in a number of different positions, but I don't expect Gundo to do those kind of games. But he does trust him. That's one thing you do know with Gundo is he trusts him, and he's quite a big game player. De Bruyne will play more because he's hopefully will stay fitter, and obviously young Foden at the bottom there is now old enough that he will be in, and he should be looking at the likes of, say, Aguero in that situation where he said he was quite happy to play his number 9 7 games in a row at the end of the season. So for us thinking about 36 double, so if you imagine that now was Man United and Burnley was a 36 double,
it would have been Tottenham United, I think. But yeah,
Tottenham United would it have been?
Yeah, I think Tottenham United would have been a 36 double, so to speak.
So you got
Burnley, Leicester 37, 38.
You've got 80. Oh yeah, FA Cup. Yeah, you've got 8 players there that play both games.
Yes, it's quite a lot, isn't it?
That is a
lot. It's quite a lot, and yeah, and those 8 players. I mean, those 8 players. They played the 2 games after that as well in 37 and 38, and it was only Zinchenko out of that missed the previous one in the Champions League and in the league. Oh no, Bilver in there, but the Champions League with Tottenham because of injury. So there's definitely a point. I think you're saying that if City win, if Liverpool win that game against City, then we could see something very, very similar to this. Because Liverpool chased them. I think City had to win 14 games in a row to win the league.
I think even if City win, though, right, 4 points isn't enough to rest
Liverpool
up.
Don't go away.
They don't go away, not soon enough on it. So, yeah, if you're a wild card in here, what you can see is the keeper, the main centre back, your 2 fullbacks, your key midfielders. So Gundo was probably more Rodri back in that time. In 2018-19, I suspect we should expect. I think.
Yeah, but you won't pick him.
Main. You wouldn't have picked him back in the 18-19 season. But Sterling. So you're looking for that wide man. I mean, he could be a really fun pick on a wild card in, say, 34 or something like that for the last five game weeks. If it looked like he was to get it, but Mahrez could equally be that person.
Because he doesn't get injured.
Doesn't get injured ever.
Which we found he's missed 1 game in his career through injury. That's it.
And that was ill.
And that was because he got COVID.
Yeah.
That's it.
He could be great fun at the price. And on pens.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all free hitted Mahrez in when we did it. I think
I'll do it again.
If I free hit in 36.
Well, I didn't free hit in 27, so I didn't get him in, but I would do it. If I had have done it, I would do it again, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't regret it.
No. Cool. Right. Let's do we want to move on to players or clubs?
Good team's really good. Core players for City's really good. Liverpool just core players against core players. Understand it. Don't muck around, because these managers don't muck around in that time.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, we just had a quick look at some players, didn't we?
Oh, this is where I have to do some editing on the fly. So you can start, and I'll just fiddle around with what.
Yeah, so this was more just me nostalgia and looking at like what happened. Like, is it premiums that smash it up? If you looked at any 10-game period and said, who got the most points in the 10-game period? Now, what you do see is most of the time this means it's explosive assets. That's my number one thing I've looked at every season, especially at the end of the season. It's explosive players. On the whole, it's explosive players. Then I'm like, just think about your transfers as we're going in at the end of it and go like, do not waste a single one. If you're going to do one that's not explosive, he has to be freeing up money to make an explosive transfer. That's definitely my feeling when I look at the players that have done really well. If you go in that 18-19, it was a lot of premiums. That was a definite premium season. Second half, the 2019-2020, a bit of a mixture on that one. But when you could look at that end column, that 31-38, you're like, there's a few interesting names in that. They're not always in there the rest of the time. If you skip forward to the last two seasons, because they're a bit more relevant to us as to what might happen. I mean, last season was genuinely a season of the unbelievable value assets. We all had some of those ones, the Gundo, of what he was doing, Ian Nacho at the end, you had the Bale picks.
Just a question on this. Is that data correct? Is that data correct? How did Willock not get on here?
Yeah, that's a good point on that one. I think I must have done a bit weird. Like, I think it was something like he did really well from like 27 to 30 or like there to there.
Okay.
I think like he
scored like 7 in a row, didn't he?
Yeah, but I think it wasn't enough games.
Okay, fair enough.
So somehow he didn't end up on there. But I did think that. Where was Willock? But what you did see is last season, towards the end, you saw creeping up of like just a range of assets that would do well. You get some form picks, don't you, in that world?
Lovely Chris Wood in there. I love that.
Lovely Chris Wood. Yeah. I said explosive. That's the thing. When I said earlier about explosive ones, I was thinking Chris Wood. Yeah, not so much. But in that last stretch, it's very, very rare for, say, like a centre back to get in. Like Laporte's the only one that's managed it in the 18-19 season to get in it. Like, you've either got attacking fullbacks or you've got fun players in the hole, or even like out of position guys like Dallas. This is the time to have fun, in what you're looking at. What I would say is this season, 13 defenders have been in there so far this season. That's more than any whole season prior to this. So, 1 to 38.
Mad.
This is the season of really good defenders. It's last season, if you look at that 2021 one, there's only 8 times a defender featured, and Dallas was out of position in that, but this season, look, Trent's been in it again. So good. I mean, Liverpool there have just gone mad in the last set of games.
Yeah,
just
it's crazy,
obscene.
And it's not even Salah in the last 10 games. Like, even Salah's not even in there.
Well, yeah, because the old AFCON, wasn't it? So he wasn't there. But I think when he went, a lot of us were like, "Oh, we'll take him out," but we didn't just go for another, like, fill our spots immediately. We should have just filled our 3 immediately. Yeah. Imagine if you'd gone triple up at the back for Liverpool, 21 to 30.
Yeah, you've got Alisson, or you could have any 3 or 4.
You've got their whole back 5 in the top point scorers, 21 to 30.
But we can see that because they conceded 0.84 XG and actually conceded 0.4 goals per game.
Yeah,
it's just so Alisson Alisson gets
unbelievable.
Matip's coming in with like 19 pointers in double game weeks, and like Trent's just Trent. Dipped off, come back, smashed it.
Yeah,
Robertson's been just ruining teams in the
just
last like
absurd.
5, 6
Just
weeks.
absurd.
I'm not sure how Van Dijk gets in there. Did he score?
Yeah, yeah, he
He
scored.
scored?
I had him for 1 week in the game that he scored
At
in the double.
26.
They scored the last, yeah, 26, literally last touch of the game week.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so the end, we've got to try and predict this last one. Like I say, they are fun picks that tend to do well at them. Forwards do tend to do all right at the end of the season in this 31 to 38 picks. Is we had 3 of them last season. We had 4 of them at the end season before. That's quite unusual on it. So we do get some strikers that do all right at the end. But this season,
Ryan Babel 4 years ago.
yeah, it's good fun, isn't it?
Amazing.
Well, there's some brilliant ones. Roberto Pereira, the old Watford guy, Wilson and
Oh, God,
Fraser.
yeah.
There's some real Felipe
Amazing.
Anderson. Do you remember when for like a short game period he was like the best player in the world?
Yeah, ridiculous.
But like the clubs that are contributing to it
Oh,
this
wanna go there?
season, yeah,
Just
if
do
we
the
finish with
last.
that,
Just finish with this one. Yeah.
there's just not many teams contributing to it.
No,
There's
if you
never
can,
been less teams contributing to it.
it's crazy. And Villa is what? Coutinho
Yeah,
and
Cash.
Cash. Yeah, of course. Coutinho and
So we've
Cash.
had Dennis, Madison, Vardy, Coutinho, Cash, Bowen, Benrahma, Antonio, Son twice, and Kane. They're the players outside of Liverpool, City, and Chelsea. No Arsenal players have made it into it despite their best ever season because they're a good team. Their whole team does okay rather than just individuals. But if there's one regret for me this season, how often have you really? I mean, you have doubled up on City, haven't you? You know, in the defence, but haven't done enough doubling up
Well, I
on
went triple Chelsea
those
quite.
players.
I went triple Chelsea from like game weeks
Yeah,
8 to 12, something like that.
yeah.
Quite a while
I
as
mean,
well.
look at them though. You know, is so. We'll go back to that early question. Everyone says, "How many am I going to get?" I think you can get as many as you like from Liverpool and City that you can afford. Chelsea, I'm not so sure.
But then
Good
you
next
want to
couple of
go,
fixtures.
yeah, and well, I think Chelsea's fixtures aren't bad. Full stop.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing is that the teams that big six, none of them really have a bad run now. There's, I mean, like who has the worst out of it? I mean, like even Tottenham have the worst double bar probably Leeds
Yep.
um, out of everyone, but their fixtures either side. Their fixtures are like Newcastle, Villa, Brighton, Brentford, Leicester, who concede loads, Burnley, who concede loads, and then finish with Norwich. I mean, like that's nuts.
It's nuts.
You can almost not. In fact, Newcastle is probably the toughest game. Like we wouldn't have said that 5 weeks ago.
And if you know,
And
we
then you're
don't have
talking
to talk
about. I
our
was gonna
Spurs
say.
bias,
Then you're talking about a
but
team that's going to create 4x. Well, it's a
mm,
tough double. Call it three. Call it 3.5 xg across the 2 games. Probably in the double.
we'll finish with some Spurs bias in this one.
Yeah.
But because we have got a shoe heart, but if you go on the Spurs official Twitter and see Paratici talk about the end of the season, like they will do everything they can for the rest of the season. Is Conte knows not of a way. He will fight every single game. We're already talking about every game's a cup final and all that stuff, which is really mad really for a team sitting where they are and what they're doing. But they will play for that way. And Kane against Liverpool and Kane against Arsenal is potentially the 36 double.
Yeah.
Just go check his record. We don't have to tell you about it. He likes those teams.
Yep.
So if you did 33 game free hit in 33 and you had Kane when a lot of people will not have Kane in 36.
I see a lot of people trying to get away from Kane in 36. In fact, Prass was talking about getting away from Kane in 36.
It almost tempts me to free so that I could just have him, because the idea of we're chasing the top four, and we play them, that
If
Tottenham
he
Arsenal game.
if he bags, let's be uber positive. Let's say he bags like 4 or 5 goals in the next 3 or 4 games. Do you think he'll have an eye on it? He'll have an eye on that golden boot. He could be 5, 6 goals behind, and he scored. And bear in mind, he scored 7 goals in the last 2 games of the season a couple of years ago to win it, right?
Mate, Liverpool's XG. We've just literally spent an hour talking about it. Like, he could get second place, but he ain't gonna take Salah, mate.
Yeah, true.
Like,
Fair.
no chance.
Second will be
No
right because
chance.
he didn't score until about game week 12.
We've just shown how bad Tottenham's defense
Yeah.
is. Not that great, you know.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, but it's good. Tottenham's defense not being perfect is good, because it just means they've got to keep scoring. It's fun. So we're not nearer the answers, I don't think, but I think hopefully anyone's watched this is really helpful. Hopefully in a way that it makes them understand what the data is telling us.
Yeah.
Good
Cool.
teams, really good.
Bad
really
teams,
good.
not so much.
Bad teams, bad.
Cool. Well, then, I mean, just as a final thought before we just do quick admin, how are you feeling? I just want to know how you're feeling, and we haven't even spoken about this. How are you feeling? Top 1K, 8 weeks to go. Never been there before. How are you feeling?
No idea. Genuinely, like, no idea, because I just think I just think there's so much to happen in this season that it's, like I said, cliche last week about one game at a time.
Yeah.
I don't really want to get into
And
that.
I know that's how you'll take it.
Targets.
I know that's how you'll take it, but
yeah, I'm just very pragmatic in that world, and just I know that I do best if I can keep myself pragmatic and keep my temperament calm.
That's it. That's true. Temperament was the thing we were talking about last season. Yeah, because I mean, I'd be probably playing the game. Well, would I be playing it differently? I don't know. I'd have a different aura about me if I was there for the first time. I mean, it feels.
I definitely want to have fun with it more.
Yeah.
I was too pragmatic at the end of last season. I had a really good run, got myself up to I got myself from like 300k up to like 20k, and then just stayed about it.
Yeah.
You know, when I should have gone aggressive in trying to get into that top 10k. So yeah, I want to be proactive with it.
Yeah.
Just trying to work out the right proactive. And I think once you've made that decision, then I think we might understand it, but I don't think I'll know that for free hit 33 or 36 or whenever decision. Probably to the night before. Like, I can still see myself the night before on 33 thinking that this works out, because if Leicester, it depends a lot what they do in that European game on the Thursday night before that game, whether you want to indulge them, what the City Liverpool result might tell me a little bit about what might happen for the weekend. We might get some news that suggests one of the single game. It might just take one single game week player to be injured for a week, or get COVID, mightn't it? And suddenly you're like, bang, I'm on it. So I think you just got to keep yourself really open. And if you start being that person that's pigeoning themselves and saying, I'm doing this.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
That work, does it?
Fair enough. Cool. We'll leave it there for another week.
Another week.
Another week. When's the deadline this week?
Saturday?
Hopefully.
Yeah. Liverpool Watford, isn't it? 11 o'clock. We normally get some kind of news, don't we, for Liverpool?
Yeah. Yeah, they're normally pretty good at getting something out.
Yeah, clear your plans next Saturday morning.
Spion Cop, or what is it? Anfield HQ. Yeah. Someone like that will have something, I'm sure.
Yeah.
If not, Rockstar will be fishing for stuff, I'm sure.
We need something, Rockstar.
Cool. Right. Well, remember, guys, follow the podcast and follow Baker on Twitter at AboveAverageFPL and at Baker FPL343. If you're watching on YouTube, please do hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button and you'll get all of our content straight away. I guess that's it, mate.
Have a good week.
Have a good week. Catch you later, mate.
See you later.
Cheers.